Welcome to the ST&G C-Form tube casting video. Today we're going to show you hand casting and how to get some good results. This is intended to capture the shape and volume, and it's not to replace plaster casting. So please look over the information sheet or the IFU. There are instructions on it, and it also has a sizing guide. This will give you the minimum and the maximum size as far as circumference. But the larger the circumference, the shorter the length you will have. So please keep that in mind. I'm going to go over a 3-inch C-form tube, and this is on a 12-year-old person. And all I'm doing is taking it out of the bag, putting it in the water, and I'm gently pushing with the top of my fingers just to work out some of the bubbles, but I'm not squishing it, because if you overly work it, you'll start working the resin out. I usually unroll it and then put it back in the water, and this helps with handling it, and it helps reduce the bubbling and the heat. So I'm gathering the sock, and I'm not overly stretching it. I'm just getting it opened up so I can start applying it. And when I apply it, what I'm doing is I'm using my fingers as a gauge to help the bunched up C-form tube go up. And I'm not trying to overly stretch it, I'm just working it out so that I can get it up to the length I need. So if you overly work it, that means if you overly stretch it, overly pull it, what happens is this can work the resin out, and then it'll start to bubble. And when it starts to bubble, it gets very sticky and it starts to generate heat. So the less you work it, the better your result as far as not bubbling and not getting in too much heat. So when you apply it, try to keep as much water on hand as possible, because you want to help reduce the bubbling by applying more water on your gloves. So what I'm doing here is I'm gathering up the C-form tube, and I'm going to go ahead and overly stretch it and pull it, and that'll start to show that it'll start to bubble. On this particular cast, since I knew I was going to make it bubble, I double gloved. So once it starts to bubble and you mold it with your gloves, it's going to get sticky. So one thing that could help is using a lot of water, keeping your gloves moist, repeatedly dunking it in the water, but keep working your cast. If it gets really bad, then remove the outer gloves. That just makes it much easier. And again, wet your gloves so that they will flow over the wrap. Keep working the mold, and you don't want too much excess material. If you double up the material, it'll generate a lot of heat, so one layer is all you really need. You have about 4.5 minutes of working time. If you have too much around the toes, pinch it off and trim it with some scissors, so keep your scissors handy. Also, you don't want too much at the top. You don't want it to gather, because that will also generate a lot of heat. So just work in your cast. You can get some good results with the Doff-N-Donner. You don't have to work it as much, but you can use your hands, use your palms. You can put your palms over the malleoli, and that'll help to mold it around there as well. But you just need to work it. So again, you have about 4.5 minutes of working time, so you have time to work it. Also, if you mark on the plastic, the marks will transfer onto the C-form tube on the inside. And what I did is had a nylon and then I applied plastic wrap over that. And I found that with nylon and you have plastic wrap, it will come right off very easily. You can see the marks on the transfer on the inside. Also, what we're looking at is you can see how some of the weave is closed in, and that's where there's excess resin. So you want a nice, even, semi-open weave. If the weave is very tight, it's usually because there's excess resin, or if you have a size that's too large, like a 4-inch on this person would not work well. It would be way too big. So again, you can see the plastic. I have a nylon on under the plastic. I marked all the essential marks I wanted to, and I wrapped over the cutting strip. And this is just to show, without overworking it, how the cast will come out. So too much water is good. It'll reduce the bubbling and the heat and the stickiness, and will also help with managing it. So again, I'm just lightly gathering it, using my fingers to slide the bunched portion up, doing a little twist as I go, but I'm not pulling it too hard and I'm not overly stretching it. So if you twist it slightly and gently pull it, that'll help suck in the C-form tube to the anatomy. Again, this is a 3-inch for a 12-year-old person. So again, don't let it bunch up, just pull it on up. So anticipate that you might have too much material or not enough material at the top, and just pull it out. And you can see how the weave is open. It's not very tight, and that's a good sign that it's a good size. If you put it on and there's wrinkling or the weave is too tight, then you probably use the size that is too large for the application that you're trying to do. So on this one, you can see that it's not bubbling up. You can still see the weave is open around the ankles. And I'm just cupping around the malleoli to get it to mold. And again, cutting off the excess. So if you take it out of the bag and you squeeze it too hard in the water and you overly stretch it and pull it up the leg, what happens is it releases the resin, and also it opens up the sock, and then you'll have a harder time getting it to conform closely to the leg. So it's better to under open it than to overly open it. And I only have one pair of gloves on. The tackiness is similar to the C-form. If you use a lot of water, it gets slightly tacky, but not overly tacky, like on the first wrap. So just go ahead and do your molding, work in and get your anatomy that you need. And remember, this is for scanning, so you want to get a surface shape and you want to get it the correct volume. So Marlo Ortiz recommended putting a nylon hose over this if you want to scan and get a high definition scan. When he reduces by 3 millimeters globally, and that'll account for the thickness of the wrap. Also what he does is he puts some pre-cut and shaped foams over the malleoli on both sides, and then all he has to do is smoothen it up. So he does a global reduction, smoothens it up, and puts his trim line, and he's pretty much done. He says it takes about 5 minutes. So on this one you can see the The, the weave density, it's pretty even and it's nice. It's not too tight. You can see how it tightens up around the toes because it's a little loose, but we don't have too much bubbling. So this is a nice cast.